Hey, what's going on, good people? Armand Owens here once again with another episode of the Daily Unsung Leader, and we're continuing on with the series for 30 days of leadership hacks. And today's day number 12, and we're going to be talking a little bit about reframing. Obviously, you can see that I changed my frame up just a little bit in the car because I wanted to come out here and just change things up a little bit. So sometimes I'll pull back from the office and from all the things that are going on, come kind of recenter, take a step back, and that's what I was doing. So I decided to go ahead and record the video for today in this manner. So you may ask, hey, what is reframing? Well, reframing is essentially taking a situation, a circumstance that you've gone through that you may or may not have defined as negative, and putting a different frame around that situation, looking at it from a different perspective, looking at it from a different angle, and changing the meaning that you apply to it in such a way that now what used to be a negative has now turned into a positive, right? One of the biggest ways this was able to help me immensely was a few years ago when my grandmother died. And my grandmother absolutely loved celebrating, absolutely loved dancing, singing, having a good time. Every Friday in my family we would always get together and have a fish fry, and it would always end up with the kids dancing, having a good time. And one of the kind of the big moments in my growing up that I remember, and why I love family so much. And when she passed away, I was kind of charged with giving the eulogy and presiding over the funeral, which is one of the hardest things even to this day that I've ever had to do, just because I was like, hey, so when am I going to get a chance to mourn? But in doing that, I was really concerned about how I was going to be able to get through the whole situation, because of the things that I remember, in that moment. I was like, how am I going to be able to, hold myself together? How am I going to be able to contain, my emotions and do this service justice? So right before the funeral, I get kind of ushered off into a side room, and I'm just kind of thinking about this whole situation. I'm still extremely worried about how I'm going to do, because I still I haven't seen her, and we were extremely close. That there was only 3 people that came to pretty much everything that I've ever done. My mom, my auntie Tony, and my grandmother. They came to my passing review. Came when I got advanced, came when I made chief, and all these other things, right? And so I'm just like, man, I don't know how I'm going to make it. But in my mind, so I'm thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? What state do I need to put myself in to be able to make it through this? So I just began to imagine my grandmother, in heaven, dancing, having a good time. And think about the fact that she was no longer in pain, because the last few years, of her life were she was not herself, obviously. And I began to think about things in terms of she was no longer in pain, obviously in a better place, and kind of got a picture, in my mind of her, dancing in heaven, right? And I began to feel extremely, good about what I was going to go do. So when I saw her, when I came in, that was my picture. That was how I framed the situation in a positive way, not in a negative way where I lost my grandmother. So being able to see things through that lens or that frame allowed me to be able to preside over the funeral and do the eulogy without without breaking down, without messing this thing up. And it's helped in so many different ways, especially in my day-to-day life, because every single day I have about 50 to 60, interactions with, people that work with me, at the command. And about 60 to 70%, of those interactions are, typically defined as negative. Somebody did this, this bad thing happened. And, people come into the office, hair on fire, looking for a way to deal with this scenario. And for me, I try never to define things as negative, never to define things as, as bad. I try to frame things in a way where, hey, this is an opportunity. This is, there's possibility even in the midst of, something that could possibly be defined as negative. To put a different frame around the information and give it whatever meaning I want to give it. And that's the cool part about reframing, because it just reminds you that you have a choice. You have a choice on how you define anything that happens to you. And you think about what's happening right now in the world with COVID-19, and here in Hawaii, we're going back as of 12, as of midnight, we're going back into a, kind of a quarantine situation, for, statewide, because of the rise in COVID cases. But looking at COVID in terms of, how can this be an opportunity? How can this, be a time where, there's a better, reestablish better connections with the family? Maybe there's a project that you wanted to work on, that you may not have had the time to work on. Now you get that opportunity to do that. But it all depends on how you frame that situation. Because if you look at it as negative and that's all you focus on, that's all you're going to get. That's all you're going to get is negative. But if you take this information, take this situation, take this time, look at it as an opportunity, guess what you're going to find? However you frame it, that's how you're going to find. That's whatever you're going to find. Right? So if you take a bad situation, but you frame it through the lens of opportunity, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find opportunities. You take a situation, you frame it through the lens of positivity and gratitude. Guess what you're going to get? More positivity, more gratitude, because that's where the focus goes. Where your energy flow, where your focus goes, that's where your energy flows, and that's what you're going to receive. So reframing is a huge, huge, huge thing. And sometimes the information can be so overwhelmingly negative that, maybe, in its immediacy, it may not be the proper time to try to reframe it. But allow yourself to go through whatever you need to go through, whatever feelings. Allow yourself to acknowledge those feelings, and then begin to reframe, what meaning you're going to apply to it. Getting bad news, this is a part of life. Everyone is going to get bad news. Everyone is going to get some news that they're not happy with. What we do with that news on the other side of it, what our response is the most important thing, though. And how you reframe bad situations will ultimately determine how your people respond to you, the type of results that you get, your performance level, all of these things, right? So being able to reshape your perspective through reframing is the key.